The Galactic Council had dismissed humanity's application for military alliance status for the third consecutive cycle. Ambassador Marcus Wright stood before the assembled representatives of 47 star systems, his jaw clenched as the verdict was delivered. "Humans are too soft," declared Warlord Kraxthor of the Varanthi Empire, his 4 arms gesturing dismissively. "Your species has not fought a major conflict in over 2 centuries. You've turned your weapons into museums, your soldiers into peacekeepers. The galaxy has no use for pacifists when the Void Swarm threatens us all." Marcus felt the anger rising in his chest, but he maintained his diplomatic composure. "We've built our civilization on cooperation and weakness," interrupted High Commander Xyloth, the crystalline being's voice resonating through the chamber. "We've reviewed your history. Yes, you once showed promise during your primitive wars, but you've grown complacent. Comfortable. While we fight for survival against an enemy that devours worlds, you tend gardens and write poetry." The council chamber erupted in agreement, a cacophony of alien languages all saying the same thing: humanity wasn't warrior enough for the coming storm. 3 months later, the Void Swarm reached human territory. Captain Jennifer Rodriguez received the distress call from the colony world of New Boston while her patrol ship, the UHNS Defiance, was conducting routine exercises near the frontier. The message was brief and terrifying: millions of insectoid creatures descending from the sky, impervious to the colony's minimal defenses. "How long until the nearest council fleet arrives?" she asked her tactical officer. Lieutenant James Murphy checked his console, his face grim. 72 hours, ma'am. They're engaged on 3 other fronts." Jennifer looked at her crew of 150 souls aboard a ship designed for patrol, not warfare. The Defiance had research equipment, scientific laboratories, and enough firepower to deal with pirates, nothing more. "Captain, New Boston has 3 million civilians," her first officer, Commander David Harrison, said quietly. "Most of them are children. The evacuation shuttles will never make it in time." Jennifer made her decision in 3 seconds. "Set course for New Boston. Maximum speed. And someone get me the president." Within an hour, every human ship within 10 light-years was converging on New Boston. Cargo haulers, mining vessels, luxury cruise ships, and the 23 military vessels of Earth's ceremonial defense fleet. None of them were prepared for war. All of them came anyway. The Void Swarm met them in orbit. What the galaxy had forgotten, what humanity had almost forgotten about itself, was that peace was a choice, not a weakness. 200 years without war hadn't erased what humans were, it had simply been buried under layers of civilization. Now, those layers were stripped away. Captain Rodriguez watched the swarm approach, a living cloud of death that had consumed 17 worlds. She opened a channel to her fleet, a ragtag collection of 41 vessels that had no business fighting an existential threat. "This is Captain Rodriguez to all ships. I know what you're thinking. I know we're outgunned, outmatched, and probably not walking away from this." She paused, looking at the planet below where her sister lived with her 2 nieces. "But those are our people down there. Our families. Our children. And I'll be damned if we let them die without a fight. The council thinks we're too peaceful." She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Let's show them what happens when you threaten a human's family." The cargo ship Prometheus was the first to engage, ramming directly into the swarm's leading edge, its hull packed with every explosive the crew could find. Captain Robert Taylor died with his hand on the detonator, taking out thousands of the creatures in a brilliant flash. The mining vessel Iron Mountain used its industrial cutting lasers to carve through swarm clusters. When its weapons overheated, Captain Lisa Anderson simply rammed her ship into the thickest concentration of enemies, her last words broadcast to the fleet: "For the children." The Defiance herself became a knife, Jennifer Rodriguez pushing the engines beyond safety limits, using the ship's mass as a weapon. Her tactical officer, Murphy, discovered that the creatures were vulnerable to rapid temperature changes. Within minutes, every ship was venting their life support coolant as improvised weapons. The cruise liner Stardancer dropped out of orbit with its shields at maximum, using its massive hull to shield the evacuation shuttles. When the swarm tore through the shields, the civilian crew, cooks, entertainers, hospitality workers, armed themselves with kitchen knives and maintenance tools and fought the creatures hand-to-hand in the corridors. For 16 hours, the battle raged. When the Council fleet finally arrived, led by Warlord Crackstor himself, they found something that would be studied in military academies for generations. 41 ships, none built for war, had held off the Void Swarm. 29 of those ships were destroyed. But New Boston still stood, and 3 million civilians were safe. The Defiance, barely holding together, drifted in orbit with fires burning across 3 decks. Captain Rodriguez, bleeding from a dozen wounds after fighting off creatures that had breached her bridge, opened a channel to the Council fleet. Ambassador Wright was right, she said, her voice hoarse. We did build our civilization on cooperation. We chose peace. She looked at the debris field around her, at the thousands who had died defending people they'd never met. But don't ever mistake our choice for peace as inability for war. We're human. We remember how to fight. We just hoped we'd never have to again. Crackstor stared at the tactical display, at the impossible thing these peaceful creatures had accomplished. His voice was quiet when he finally spoke. Council Protocols Article 7, when a species displays exceptional valor in the defense of life, immediate alliance status is granted. He looked at the human ships, battered but unbroken. Welcome to the Alliance, Captain Rodriguez. Welcome to the war. Marcus Wright received the news 6 hours later. As he prepared humanity's acceptance speech, he looked at the casualty reports and wondered if the Council truly understood what they'd unleashed. Humanity had spent 2 centuries building peace. Now they would spend whatever time it took teaching the Void Swarm why that peace was so precious, and why threatening it was the last mistake any enemy would ever make. The galaxy had wanted warriors. Now they would learn the difference between those who love war and those who fight because they must. And that difference, Marcus knew, would terrify them almost as much as the Swarm.